Hi, folks. Welcome to What's Trans or Gay in PA for July 9th, 2021. We share news stories and events that impact the LGBTQ plus community across Pennsylvania, from Philadelphia to Erie and all points in between. Today's show is brought to you by the YouTube program Powered by Rainbows, starring Matt Haslam, provider of quality LGBTQ plus education for virtual classrooms in Pennsylvania and around the world. And by Aura Jewelry by Mary Moore, maker of fine quality, reasonably priced necklaces and other items. Check out her Etsy page for details. Today's show is also brought to you by One Hope Wines. Their award-winning wines are made by some of the most acclaimed winemakers in the industry. Blending traditional winemaking methods with modern techniques, each exquisite bottle becomes a catalyst for change. Our top news story today: the White House has announced that President Joe Biden will deliver a speech in Philadelphia on Tuesday regarding voting rights. His visit to Philly comes while legislators in both Harrisburg and Washington are fighting over the 2020 presidential election and election laws generally. The White House's announcement Friday offered little detail, saying only that Biden will be speaking about actions to protect the sacred constitutional right to vote. Pennsylvania is one of the battleground states buffeted by former President Donald Trump's baseless accusations and conspiracy theories that attribute his loss to Biden in last year's election to widespread election fraud. Republicans in the GOP-led General Assembly continue to send Governor Wolf bills that restrict voting rights, and Governor Wolf immediately vetoes these bills. However, the GOP may need to take a cue from Georgia and Texas when considering the rollbacks for voting rights. After Georgia passed a sweeping election reform bill earlier this year over the objections of major employers, including Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball pulled its 2021 All-Star game out of Atlanta, moving it to Denver, Colorado. When Texas considered its own voting rights bill in May, 50 Texas companies, including Hewlett-Packard and American Airlines, and more than 180 business leaders, signed letters opposing the bill. Voter suppression is a stain on our reputation that could cost our region millions of dollars, the business leaders' letter said. Given that the 2020 U.S. Census is complete and that legislative district maps are being redrawn, Pennsylvania's LGBTQ plus community has much to be concerned about. While passing voting rights restrictions, many of these same states, Pennsylvania included, are preparing bills to prohibit transgender girls to play on high school and intercollegiate athletic teams, restricting trans youths seeking medical care for their gender affirmation, and considering bills that will allow discrimination in public accommodations by using religious freedom as an excuse. According to CNBC, lawmakers in Texas also considered a bill that would criminalize gender-affirming medical treatments like puberty blockers, designating such health care as child abuse. A similar law was passed in Arkansas, and that drew the ire of 49 companies and organizations, including Texas-based Southwest Airlines and Dell Technologies, which signed an open letter in protest. Should such legislation be considered in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Equality Project is committed to call on business leaders statewide to send similar letters of protest to Harrisburg. Each Friday, we pick a topic and offer as in-depth a discussion as possible. Today, we focus on the library book displays from high schools and public libraries from across the country. Our first story comes from Oklahoma. According to the Enid News and Eagle, an Enid Library Board meeting on July 8th to welcome new members and review the library's current policies shifted to much ado over its recently contentious LGBTQ plus Pride Month book display. Due to concerns about the coronavirus, the now 7-member board overseeing the public library of both Enid and Garfield counties had not met in over a year to review the library and its facilities, budget, personnel, and programs. Those against the display on Thursday argued the library was unfairly, quote, promoting the LGBTQ plus community over popular religious viewpoints. While members and allies of the long marginalized community thanked the library for giving representation throughout June and made claims of attempted censorship. New library board member Joseph Fletcher said he believed the issue was not about the promotion of certain books, but rather public access to them. Enid resident Kayla Nichols, who wrote a letter last week objecting to the library's display, attended Thursday's meeting, and she said she did not object to the library having the LGBTQ themed books, but that the public library should not be taking sides. Nichols went on to say, "We do not need to bring in divisive things into a public building." Library book displays have been contentious in Pennsylvania too. In Maplewood High School in Crawford County, a contractor for the school district took a photo of an LGBTQ plus themed display and forwarded it to 2 local school board members. These members in turn took to Facebook and posted the photos. One didn't leave a comment about the photo, but the other, Mr. David Valesky, referred to the LGBTQ plus community as, quote, totally evil. Meanwhile, in Lycoming County, 2 out of 3 county commissioners opined during a public meeting that the library book display at the James V. Brown Public Library in Williamsport was offensive and should be removed because it promoted the gay lifestyle, in their words. The arguments presented at the meetings in Enid, Oklahoma, and here in Pennsylvania are eerily similar. Back in Oklahoma, Jenny Scott said books opposing the LGBTQ plus community already are available and that the library as a whole is that other side. I'm sure they're already included in the library, but they don't need to be next to a display during Pride Month, Scott said, before being interrupted by applause. Suicide rates among LGBTQ plus youth are, quote, astounding, said Stephanie Ezel, and is the 2nd leading cause of death among LGBTQ youth. These children are 4 times more likely to experience suicidal ideation or thoughts, Ezel said. She went on to say that being bisexual while growing up and living in Enid, Oklahoma, has been difficult. She said, quote, "This has always felt like a safe space for me coming to the library since she was a teenager, and that's something I want my children here to feel." The level of acceptance for the LGBTQ plus community is much different in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Although Pride Month is over, the La Crosse Public Library is reminding readers that every day of the year offers an opportunity to learn more about the LGBTQ plus history and advocacy in Wisconsin. The book, We Will Always Be Here, a guide to exploring and understanding the history of LGBTQ plus activism in Wisconsin, is available at the circulation desk at the library. and readers are even invited to attend a virtual discussion about the book. The program is a partnership with the Wisconsin Historical Society, the Center, Seven Rivers LGBTQ Connection, and the University of Wisconsin Pride Center. In Anderson, Kentucky, a local public library featured several of its LGBTQ plus books and resources. The showcase had some people praising the library for focusing on the LGBTQ plus community, but others criticized the library, saying it's inappropriate content for children. The library's director selects a relevant monthly theme and displays books and resource materials right at the front doors of the Anderson Public Library. During Pride Month, the library featured LGBTQ plus themed books and resources, and the display brought a mix of praise and criticism. Library Board of Trustees President Rachel Dockel said, "We as the library really want to make sure we are striving to serve the broader community and different parts of our community, understanding that not everything we have is going to be something that's important to everyone, but chances are it's going to be important to someone." She didn't realize just how important this display would be for so many, both positively and negatively. So much so that an overflow crowd of people bombarded the regularly scheduled Board of Trustees meeting that took place to provide public comment. I grew up in Anderson County. Coming to the library, I wish I had this display as a child, one community member said during the meeting. She went on to say, "I was 16 years old and had a gun to my head, wanting to kill myself because I was gay." Another community member ranted, "It doesn't matter if you're a closet heterosexual, a raging transsexual, whatever you are, or don't know what you are, it's wrong to push an agenda on the children of the county." In response, Dockel said that the library is always open to public comment, but that they have no plans to remove the display before Pride Month ended. Incidentally, the library didn't remove the display until July. She said, "No matter which side you're on, this feedback has proved how connected the community is to its local library." The library's board president commented, "We are honestly very thankful for the amount of passion, obviously, that this has shown us that folks have for the library." The internet is filled with story after story about LGBTQ plus themed library books and displays. In most of the stories that we read, several people attend library board meetings, city or county council meetings, and they all make the same comments about how the LGBTQ plus materials should not be made readily accessible to children. One library, however, in Irving, Texas, took a much different approach. On Monday, June 14th, the Irving Library took to Twitter to share photos of pride displays in its 3 local libraries. It wrote, "June is LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Visit any of our 3 library locations to browse our pride displays and find a book to celebrate the lives and history of our LGBTQ plus community." One book, however, did not belong as part of the display. Conservative author and scholar Ryan Anderson published "When Harry Became Sally," responding to the transgender movement, and the library inadvertently added it to the pride display along transgender affirming literature. Anderson is the current president of the Ethics and Public Policy Center, an anti-LGBTQ plus conservative think tank, and was previously a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. His book misgenders trans people throughout its entirety, including celebrities like Laverne Cox, Jazz Jennings, and Caitlyn Jenner. And Anderson has argued that being trans is both a mental illness and a politically correct fad. When a Twitter user pointed out that When Harry Became Sally was among the books in the Pride display, the Irving Library offered a meager apology. It tweeted, "We noticed this error as well and removed it from our display days ago. Unfortunately, this is an older picture and we missed it when we posted it. We do apologize." However, the library went on to reassure all library goers that they would still be able to check out the anti-trans book. When Harry Became Sally was banned by Amazon earlier this year under its new policy to no longer sell books that frame LGBT plus identities as mental illnesses. Before we conclude our show, please allow me to express my personal thoughts about LGBTQ plus themed library book displays. No matter whether a library is part of a high school, on a university campus, or serves a region as a public library, all libraries are places of exploration, growth, and discussion. Libraries and continued lifelong learning make our electorate educated and informed. Our first story on voting rights and this second story on library books fit neatly together. We in the LGBTQ plus community cannot stress enough the need to be represented in books, movies, magazines, in the halls of Congress in Washington, the General Assembly in Harrisburg, and at your local polling places on election days. Local libraries are a public trust, and as taxpayers, the LGBTQ plus community cannot be silenced any longer. If you don't agree with politics, you need to change your way of thinking. All that we go through within the LGBTQ plus community is under attack, and politics do matter. When meetings arise that relate to library books and displays or other LGBTQ plus related topics, it is our responsibility as advocates and activists to speak out and support our community. In some locales, public libraries offer drag queen reading hour. In other communities, librarians have set up and kept up displays during Pride Month that for the LGBTQ plus community are both positive and affirming. Yes, children will see these books. They should. They have classmates who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. Children should not be excluded from learning that LGBTQ plus people exist. If they aren't interested in learning about the topic at the moment, they will simply walk past the display. If, however, a child does ask questions about the community, then at the very least, the responsible steps to take are to allow your child to read and ask questions. Hiding your child from exposure to the LGBTQ plus community for religious or moral reasons is simply inexcusable, because sooner or later, they will either come out of the closet on their own or one of their friends will. If you have news or events that you would like us to mention on our show, send story ideas to info@paequality.com. The rundown will return tomorrow evening, and for events which are mentioned on the rundown, please allow up to 1 week prior to the event for us to include it on the program. Thanks for watching today. If you liked our show, give us a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Tune in again tomorrow when we will have another edition of What's Trans or Gay in PA. And be sure to tune in on Sunday for a special episode of Pep Talks Uncut, in which our guest will be Savannah Anderton, local advocate and activist in Northwest Pennsylvania. What's Gay in PA is a production of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, all rights reserved.